My parents received $550 weekly from me, living very well. On my child's birthday, they simply didn't appear. Calling, Dad then snapped, "We don't count your family." Shaking, I completely closed every account. 40 minutes later, their bank agent alerted Mom, stating, "Your funds are now totally inaccessible." She lost it. What if the people who gave you life, who you bled for, who you sacrificed everything for, ultimately saw you as nothing more than a convenient ATM? And what if the gut-wrenching realization of that betrayal hit you the moment your own child's heart shattered into a million pieces? For 3 agonizing years, every Friday morning, that invisible chain around my neck tightened as $550 vanished from my bank account. It wasn't just money, it was my blood, my sweat, my endless attempts to prove my worth. I watched that digital transfer happen week after week, never truly questioning if it was the right thing to do. They were Eleanor and Richard, my parents. They gave me life, love, opportunity, or so I believed. When they came to me with tearful pleas and endless excuses, a leaky roof, a broken-down car, mounting medical bills, Richard's back pain cutting his hours, Eleanor's salon shifts disappearing, my heart just melted. What kind of daughter, after everything they'd supposedly done for me, would Chloe and Reynolds be if she said no? So, I opened my wallet again and again. My husband, Nathan, saw it first. We were huddled at our tiny kitchen table in our modest 2-bedroom apartment, the glow of the overhead light illuminating the stack of bills we could barely afford. He traced a line on the bank statement with a frown that carved deep creases into his forehead. "Babe," he said, his voice soft but strained. "We're barely making rent this month." Groceries went on the credit card again. He tapped the recurring payment. Maybe we could ask your parents if they can manage with a little less, just temporarily?" My stomach twisted into knots. "They need it, Nathan. You know how tight things are for them." He sighed, looking around our cramped apartment, then at me. "Things are tight for us too, Chloe. We've got Sophie to think about." I glanced toward the living room where our 4-year-old daughter was on the floor, building a block tower taller than herself, her tongue poking out in intense concentration. She deserved everything. But so did my parents, didn't they? They gave me life. This money was my way of paying them back. "I'll pick up extra shifts," I said, ending the conversation. Nathan just sighed, but didn't push. He never did. He knew how deeply I felt this obligation. This invisible chain binding me to them. But if I'm being honest, our relationship had always been complicated. Love with Eleanor and Richard always came with an invisible price tag. Good grades bought me affection. Anything less, and I was met with chilling silence. My mother, Eleanor, was a master of making you feel indebted, as if every meal cooked, every ride given, came with a running tally. Richard, while gentler, was always a silent enforcer, nodding along to Eleanor's every decree. When I got pregnant with Sophie at 23, unmarried, working retail, Eleanor's first response wasn't, "Congratulations," or "How can we help?" It was, "How could you do this to us?" The shame was a physical blow. Richard stood behind her, arms crossed, nodding. They came around eventually, or so I thought. They showed up at the hospital, cooed over Sophie, took 1,000 photos. Everything seemed fine until Nathan, and I got married 6 months later in a simple courthouse ceremony. Eleanor didn't speak to me for a week because we hadn't given them a real wedding. Still, they were my parents. Family was family. When their financial troubles began 2 years after Sophie was born, I didn't hesitate. $550 a week wasn't easy on our budget, but we managed. We became experts at sacrifice. Date nights a distant memory. Streaming services canceled. Sophie's clothes always secondhand. I told myself it was temporary. A bridge until they got back on their feet. But they never did. The money just kept flowing out like a slow bleed. Sophie's 5th birthday was just around the corner, a Saturday in October. We'd been planning for weeks. Nothing extravagant. Just a small party at our apartment with a few of her kindergarten friends. I baked her a chocolate cake with pink frosting, exactly what she'd asked for. Nathan had strung up streamers and balloons the night before. Sophie was practically vibrating with excitement, her little heart set on a perfect day. Friday morning, I called Eleanor to confirm. "Of course, we'll be there, honey," she chirped, her voice warm. We wouldn't miss our grandbaby's birthday for anything. Relief washed over me. "Great. Party starts at 2. I know it's a bit of a drive, but it means so much to Sophie that you're coming. We'll be there with bells on," Eleanor promised. Saturday arrived bright and clear. Sophie wore her favorite purple dress and sparkly shoes. Our apartment, despite our limited budget, looked festive and joyful. I'd stayed up past midnight wrapping presents and preparing snacks. Everything felt perfect. 2 o'clock came. The other kids arrived with their parents, filling the apartment with joyful noise. We played games, sang songs, and Sophie kept running to the window, asking, "When will Grandma and Grandpa be here?" "Any minute now, sweetie," I'd tell her, checking my phone for the 10th time. No messages. No calls. 2:30, 3 o'clock. The other kids were eating cake. Sophie's face fell a little more each time the door opened, and it wasn't her grandparents. "Mommy, where are they?" she asked, her lower lip trembling. "I'm sure they're just running late, baby," I choked out, but my hands were shaking as I dialed Eleanor's number. Straight to voicemail. I tried Richard. Same thing. By 4 o'clock, the party was winding down. Parents collected their kids, thanking us for a lovely time. Sophie sat on the couch, still in her party dress, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. "They forgot about me," she whispered. My heart shattered into a million pieces. Nathan wrapped his arms around both of us, shooting me a look that spoke volumes of anger and sympathy, too kind to voice aloud. After we finally put Sophie to bed that night, I tried calling again. This time, Richard answered on the third ring. I could hear voices, laughter, the clink of glasses in the background. "Richard, where were you today?" "Sophie's party was that was today." He sounded distracted, utterly unbothered. "Eleanor and I went to visit your brother Caleb in Phoenix. Caleb's been begging us to come out, and we figured, why not? My brother Caleb, the golden child, the one who lived across the country with his wife, Isabella, and 2 kids, the 6-figure job, the house with a pool. Caleb, who never had to send them money because he was already successful enough to make them proud." "You knew about the party, Richard." "I called yesterday to confirm." "Well, we can't just drop everything for every little thing, Chloe. We have other grandchildren, too." Something cold, heavy settled in my chest. Every little thing? It was Sophie's 5th birthday. "Look, we'll make it up to her. We're actually having a wonderful time out here. Caleb took us to this incredible restaurant last night. Steaks were phenomenal. His kids are in so many activities. Soccer, piano, swimming. We're going to watch Ethan's game tomorrow." Each word felt like a slap. They had chosen Caleb's kids over mine. They had taken a trip to Phoenix, which certainly wasn't cheap, while I sent them $550 every single week so they could survive. "How did you afford the trip?" The question burst out before I could stop it. "What do you mean?" "We saved up." Richard's tone shifted, defensive now. "Saved up?" "Saved up from the money I send you every week so you can pay your bills." Silence stretched thick and uncomfortable. Then Richard's voice came back, harder than I'd ever heard it. "That money is ours, Chloe. What we do with it is our business. You offered to help us, remember? We didn't force you. I offered because you said you were struggling. Because you said you couldn't make ends meet. We are struggling. Do you know how expensive everything is?" "Yes, Richard. I do know because I'm struggling too. But I still send you money every week because you're my parents and I thought you needed it. Maybe if you managed your finances better, don't." My voice cracked. "Don't you dare. I work 50-hour weeks. Nathan works 2 jobs. We buy store-brand everything. We haven't taken a vacation in 3 years. And meanwhile, you're eating expensive steaks in Phoenix and couldn't even bother to show up for your granddaughter's birthday. You're being dramatic, Chloe. We'll see Sophie another time." Nathan appeared in the doorway, watching me with concern. I could see Sophie's bedroom door slightly ajar. I wondered if she could hear me. "You broke her heart today," I said, my voice dropping to barely a whisper. "She waited by that window for 2 hours." Richard scoffed. "Kids are resilient. She'll forget about it by next week." "I won't." "What's that supposed to mean?" My hand clenched around the phone. "Why did you really blow off the party, Richard? Tell me the truth." He exhaled, a long-suffering sound that made my skin crawl. "You want the truth? Fine. Caleb's family is just easier. His kids are well-behaved. His house is nice. His wife is pleasant. We don't have to pretend everything's okay when we're with them because everything actually is okay." "Pretend?" My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "What are you pretending with us? Come on, Chloe. You know what I mean. You and Nathan struggle. You live in that tiny apartment. You're always stressed about money. It's depressing. When we visit Caleb, we can actually relax and enjoy ourselves." Each word was a knife between my ribs. "We struggle because we send you $550 every single week. Nobody forced you to do that. You asked me to. You called crying about how you couldn't afford your mortgage. How you didn't know what you were going to do, and you offered to help. That was your choice. The background noise on his end grew louder. I heard Eleanor's laugh, high and bright. Richard, who else is there? Just some of Caleb's friends. He's hosting a dinner party. We should go, Chloe. We'll talk later. A dinner party? You're at a dinner party at Caleb's house while my daughter cried herself to sleep because her grandparents didn't care enough to show up for her birthday. That's not fair, Chloe. We do care. Caleb's our son too. We have to split our time. Split your time? You haven't visited us in 8 months. You've been to Phoenix 3 times this year. Richard's patience snapped. I could hear it in his voice. That hard edge that used to terrify me as a child. You want to know why? Because Caleb doesn't make us feel guilty every time we spend $1. He doesn't act like we owe him something. He's successful and independent, and when we visit, we feel proud instead of pitted. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with unspoken judgment. In the background, someone called for Richard to come back to the table. We don't count your family the same way, Chloe. Caleb's family is different. Better established. You have to understand that. We don't count your family. The words echoed in my head, bouncing around until they were all I could hear. Your daughter, your husband, you. We don't count you the same way. Chloe, are you still there? I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Nathan crossed the room and pulled me into his arms. And I realized I was crying ugly, gasping sobs that I tried to muffle against his shoulder. What did he say? Nathan asked quietly. I told him everything, every brutal word. By the end, his jaw was tight, and I could see the anger burning behind his eyes. The same anger he usually kept carefully controlled. After everything you've done for them, he said, his voice raw. After everything you've sacrificed, I pulled back, wiping my face. Something had broken inside me during that phone call, but something else had crystallized, too. A clarity I'd been avoiding for 3 long years. I need my laptop. Nathan fetched it without question. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same place where we'd had so many conversations about money, about sacrifices, about making things work. My fingers trembled, but my resolve was solid steel as I opened the browser. First, I logged into the bank account and canceled the automatic transfer. 3 years of $550 weekly payments. I did the math in my head. Over $85,000. Money that could have gone toward a bigger apartment, a college fund for Sophie, a reliable car, a vacation, anything. Instead, it had funded trips to Phoenix and expensive steaks, a life of comfort while we scraped by. Then I went further. The car they drove, registered in my name because their credit was too poor to get a decent loan. I'd helped them buy it 2 years ago, making the monthly payments along with everything else. I logged into the loan company's website and found the customer service number. The cell phones they used on my family plan. I navigated to the carrier's website. The credit card I'd given them for emergencies, which always seemed to have non-emergency charges on it. I pulled up that account too. One by one, I went through every connection, every thread that bound me to them financially. Nathan sat beside me silent, his hand on my shoulder. Are you sure? He asked when I paused, my finger hovering over the final confirmation button. I thought about Sophie's face at the window, then her tear-streaked cheeks. I thought about Richard's words. We don't count your family. I thought about 3 years of sacrifices, of going without, of the stress and the arguments and the guilt. I'm sure. Click. The transfer was canceled. Click. A request to remove authorized users from the car loan account and prepare for vehicle return. Click. 2 phone lines disconnected from my plan. Click. Credit card canceled. I did it all in 15 minutes. 40 minutes after I'd hung up on Richard, my phone rang. Eleanor's name flashed on the screen. I answered but didn't speak first. What did you do? Her voice, usually so controlled, was a raw shriek of disbelief. Chloe and Reynolds, what the hell did you do? I removed you from my accounts. My voice was eerily calm, the words feeling like pure, unadulterated freedom. You can't do that. That's our money. That's our car. It's my car, Eleanor. My name's on the title. My credit got the loan. And the money was mine too. Money I sent you every week while my own family struggled. You ungrateful little ungrateful? The word hung in the air, thick with hypocrisy. Tell me, Eleanor, I whispered. What exactly should I be grateful for? You raised me. You fed me, clothed me, put a roof over my head. That's called being a parent. That's the bare minimum you're supposed to do when you decide to have a child. How dare you? After everything we've done, everything we've sacrificed, what did you sacrifice today, Eleanor? What did you sacrifice when you chose to go to Phoenix instead of showing up for your granddaughter's birthday? A pause, then quieter, but no less venomous. Caleb is our son, and I'm your daughter, and Sophie is your granddaughter, but apparently we don't count the same way. That's not Richard didn't mean. He meant exactly what he said. You both did. I felt Nathan's hand squeeze my shoulder. For 3 years, I sent you money. I worked myself to exhaustion. I watched my husband work 2 jobs. We went without so you could have, and you used that money to visit Caleb, to live comfortably while we struggled. And then you couldn't even bother to show up for a child's birthday party. We were going to send her a present. She doesn't want a present, Eleanor. She wanted her grandparents. She wanted to show you her new dress and her birthday cake and share her special day with you. But you were too busy eating expensive food with your real family. Don't twist his words. I'm not twisting anything. You made your choice. You've been making it for years. I was just too guilty and too afraid to see it. I took a breath. So now I'm making my choice. No more money. No more car payments. No more phone bills. You're on your own. You can't do this to us. You did it to yourselves. You want to know something? I would have kept sending money. Even after today, even after missing the party, I probably would have made excuses for you and kept the transfers going because I felt like I owed you. But then Richard said, we don't count. And I realized he was right. We don't count to you. So why should you count to me? Chloe, please. Eleanor's voice cracked, and I heard a real tremor of panic. We need that money, the mortgage, get jobs, Eleanor. Full-time jobs. Sell the house and downsize. Do what the rest of us do. But we're too old. You're 56. Richard's 58. You're not too old to work. You're just too comfortable living off your daughter while treating her like she's less than her brother. That's not true. We love you both the same. If you loved us the same, you would have been at that party. If you loved us the same, you wouldn't have spent money I sent for your mortgage on trips to see Caleb. If you loved us the same, Richard wouldn't have said what he said. Silence on the other end. Then, what do you want from us, Chloe? An apology? I don't want anything from you anymore. That's the point. You're being cruel. I'm being done. Fine. Eleanor's voice rose again, hysteria creeping in. Fine. Be selfish. Abandon your parents when we need you most. But don't come crying to us when you need help because we'll remember this. We'll remember how you threw us away over one missed party. One missed party, 3 years of lying, and a lifetime of making me feel like I'm never quite good enough unless I'm giving you something. Yeah, Eleanor. I think that about covers it. Your father, and I won't forget this, Chloe. You're making a huge mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. I hung up before she could respond. The phone immediately started ringing again. I silenced it and set it face down on the table. Nathan wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my head. You okay? I don't know. Tears were streaming down my face again, but I felt lighter somehow. Devastated, but free. Did I just ruin everything? You just saved us, Nathan said quietly. You saved our family. Our family? The words resonated deep within me. Sophie, Nathan, and me? That was my family. That's who counted. The phone kept lighting up with calls and texts. I ignored them all. Eventually, Nathan took the phone and blocked their numbers. Just for tonight, he said, so you can breathe. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every brutal moment. I wondered if I had overreacted, if I'd been too harsh, if I should call and apologize. But then I remembered Sophie's face, the hope every time the door opened, the tears when she realized they weren't coming. The quiet way she'd asked, did I do something wrong, Mommy? No, I hadn't overreacted. If anything, I should have done this years ago. The next morning, Sunday, I woke to find Nathan already up, sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open and a cup of coffee beside him. Come look at this, he said. I shuffled over, exhausted from my restless night. He pulled up our bank account and a spreadsheet he'd apparently been working on. This is what we've been spending monthly, he said, pointing to a figure that made my stomach drop. And this is what we'll have now. The difference was staggering. With the money we'd been sending my parents, we could afford to move to a bigger apartment. We could build Sophie's college fund. We could breathe. We could take Sophie to Disney World, Nathan said softly. She's been asking for months. Disney World? A real vacation? The thought felt impossible and wonderful at the same time. Sophie appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Is it breakfast time? I scooped her up, hugging her tight. She smelled like sleep and strawberry shampoo. How about we make pancakes, the special ones with chocolate chips? Her face lit up. Really? Really? As we cooked together, Sophie chattering about her party and her friends, and everything except her missing grandparents, I felt the guilt trying to creep back in, but I pushed it away. I'd spent too many years feeling guilty for not being enough, for not giving enough, for not sacrificing enough. My phone buzzed on the counter. Nathan had unblocked them. A text from Richard. You need to call your mother. She's very upset. I deleted it without responding. Another text. We can talk about this like adults. Delete. Another. You're being unreasonable. Family helps family. That one made me laugh. A bitter sound. I showed it to Nathan. Family helps family, he read aloud. Where was that energy yesterday when their granddaughter needed them? I typed a response and read it to Nathan before sending. You're right. Family does help family. I'm choosing to help mine now. Best of luck with everything. I hit send and then did something I never had the courage to do before. I blocked their numbers permanently. The next few weeks were strange. I kept expecting to feel worse, to break down, to regret what I'd done. Instead, I felt progressively lighter. The automatic transfer didn't go through that Friday, and for the first time in 3 years, we had breathing room in our budget. We took Sophie to the zoo. We bought new school clothes without checking price tags first. Nathan cut down to one job. I saw him smile more, stress less, actually be present when we had family dinners. My brother Caleb called after 2 weeks. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. What the hell did you do? He asked, skipping pleasantries entirely. Eleanor and Richard are losing their minds. They told you their version, I'm guessing. They said you cut them off completely over nothing. Said you're having some kind of breakdown. I laughed. It felt good. Did they mention missing Sophie's birthday to visit you? Silence. They said the dates got mixed up. They lied. I confirmed the day before. They chose to. Skip it because spending time with your family is more enjoyable than spending time with mine. Chloe, come on. That's not. Did they tell you they've been using the $550 I send them every week to fund their trips to Phoenix? That Richard said they don't count my family the same as yours. More silence, longer this time. I didn't know they were getting money from you, Caleb finally said. They never mentioned it. Of course, they didn't. Why would they? You already make them proud. I'm just the daughter who's useful for cash. That's not fair. You're right. None of this is fair. But it's done now. They're a problem. If they need help, I'm out. Caleb tried to argue, to mediate, to convince me I was being too harsh. I hung up halfway through. He tried to call back. I blocked him too. Nathan's parents, Michelle and Arthur, who lived 3 hours away and had always been kind to us despite not having much themselves, called that weekend. We heard what happened, Michelle said gently. We just wanted to check on you. I braced for judgment, for a lecture about family obligations. Instead, she said, good for you, sweetheart. I blinked back tears. You don't think I'm being awful? I think you're being brave. Nathan told us how much you've been sending them. How much you've been struggling. Parents are supposed to help their children, not drain them dry. You did the right thing. Those words healed something in me I didn't know was broken. A month passed. Then 2. Eleanor and Richard tried reaching out through email, through social media, through mutual friends. Each message followed the same pattern. Anger, guilt-tripping, brief apologies that somehow blamed me for being too sensitive, then more anger. I didn't respond to any of them. 3 months after Sophie's birthday, I got a certified letter. My hands shook as I opened it. It was from a lawyer informing me that Eleanor and Richard were demanding compensation for the car they'd been using, claiming I'd gifted it to them and had no right to take it back. I laughed until I cried. I forwarded the letter to my own lawyer, Amelia, a friend from college who worked in family law. She called me an hour later. They don't have a case, Amelia said. The car is in your name. You made all the payments, and you have documentation of everything. I'll send them a cease and desist. But Chloe, they're probably not going to let this go easily. Let them fight, I said, my voice firm. I'm done making things easy for them. What Amelia didn't tell me over the phone was just how messy things would get. The cease and desist went out, but Eleanor and Richard didn't stop there. They started calling Nathan's workplace, claiming there was a family emergency and that he needed to convince me to call them. His boss, confused and concerned, pulled him aside. Nathan came home that evening with his jaw clenched. They called the office, told Linda that someone in the family was dying and I needed to reach out urgently. I told him never to contact my workplace again and hung up. My blood went cold. Who's dying? No one. Richard answered when I called back and said they just needed to talk to you, that it was important. Nathan ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I'd come to recognize as his way of controlling anger. This is harassment, Chloe. He was right. I documented everything and sent it to Amelia. She added it to the file we were building just in case we needed a restraining order down the line. The next incident came through Sophie's kindergarten. Eleanor somehow got the main office number and called, claiming she was picking Sophie up early for a doctor's appointment. Thank God the school had strict protocols. The secretary, Mrs. Davies, knew our family well and knew only Nathan and I were authorized for pickup. She called me immediately. I left work early and drove straight to the kindergarten, my heart hammering. When I arrived, Mrs. Davies showed me the notes from the call. Eleanor had been insistent, almost desperate, saying it was urgent and that I'd forgotten to add her to the pickup list. "I'm so sorry this happened," Mrs. Davies said, her expression troubled. "We would never have released her without your authorization, but I wanted you to know this occurred." I filed a report with the school and updated Sophie's file with explicit instructions that Eleanor and Richard were not permitted contact. The director assured me they flagged the account that night. I held Sophie a little tighter during bedtime stories, terrified of what might have happened if the school hadn't followed procedure. Nathan suggested we get a security camera for the front door. "Just in case they show up," he said. I hated that we needed it, but I agreed. 2 days later, the camera was installed. We caught them on the third night. At 11:47 p.m., the motion sensor alert went off on my phone. I grabbed it from the nightstand and watched the live feed as Eleanor and Richard walked up to our apartment door. Richard was carrying something I couldn't quite make out in the dark. Eleanor kept looking around nervously. They knocked quietly at first, then more insistently. Nathan woke up and watched over my shoulder as they knocked for 5 solid minutes. When we didn't answer, Richard sat down what he'd been carrying, a wrapped present, I realized, and they left. In the morning, I found the gift on our doorstep, a card taped to the top, read for Sophie. "Love, Grandma and Grandpa." Inside was an expensive doll, the kind that cost at least $100. The irony wasn't lost on me. They could afford this, but claimed they needed my money to survive. I donated the doll to a children's charity that afternoon. The card went in the trash. Amelia called with an update the following week. "Your parents' lawyer withdrew from the case." Reading between the lines, I think they realized their clients don't have the funds to pursue this, and that they'd lose it anyway. "But Chloe, there's something else." My stomach dropped. "What?" "They filed for bankruptcy. It's public record. I saw it come through yesterday. Bankruptcy." Part of me felt vindicated. Proof that they'd been mismanaging money all along, that my $550 a week had been enabling rather than helping. But another part, the daughter who'd been conditioned to feel responsible for their well-being, felt the stab of guilt. "They made their choices," Amelia said gently, reading my silence correctly. "You're not responsible for their financial decisions." I knew she was right intellectually, but emotionally, it took longer to accept. That night, I lay awake wondering if I should have handled things differently. Nathan must have sensed my spiral because he rolled over and pulled me close. "Talk to me," he said. "What if they lose everything? What if they end up homeless?" "They won't. They have Caleb. They have friends. They have options. What they don't have anymore is you to manipulate." His voice was firm but kind. "You gave them 3 years, Chloe. 3 years of your money, your stress, your family's stability. They threw it away on trips and expensive dinners and favoritism. Their bankruptcy isn't your fault. But I'm your husband. Sophie is your daughter. We're your responsibility now, not them. They're adults who made adult choices." He was right. I knew he was right. But breaking decades of conditioning is harder than it sounds. The bankruptcy explained their increasingly desperate attempts to contact me. They'd burned through whatever savings they had. Probably assumed I'd come running back once I saw how dire their situation was, but I didn't. I couldn't. Every time I thought about reaching out, I remembered Sophie crying at her party. I remembered Richard's words, "We don't count your family." Caleb called from a number I didn't recognize. I answered before I could check. "Don't hang up," he said quickly. "Please, Chloe, just listen." I should have hung up anyway. Instead, I waited. "Eleanor and Richard are living with me now," he continued. "They lost the house. They're sleeping in our guest room. It's still a lot. Isabella is not happy. The kids are confused. And Eleanor cries constantly about you. That's not my problem, Caleb. I know you're mad, but they're our parents. They're your parents. Who they made it clear, they don't love my family. Chloe, come on. They made a mistake. One mistake. 3 years of lies isn't one mistake. Choosing your kids over mine repeatedly isn't one mistake. Trying to manipulate me through guilt and obligation isn't one mistake. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. And you know what? I'm tired of pretending otherwise. Caleb sighed. What do you want me to say? That you're right? Fine, you're right. They screwed up, but they're still our parents and they need help. Then help them. You're the golden child. You're the one they actually respect. You have the big house and the great job. You take care of them. I have my own family to support. The hypocrisy was stunning. And I didn't have my own family when I was sending them over $2,000 a month? When Nathan was working himself into exhaustion, when we couldn't afford to take Sophie to the doctor without worrying about the copay. Silence. You have no idea what it was like, I continued, years of resentment pouring out. You were always the favorite, always the one who did everything right. I was the screw-up who got pregnant young and married a guy who wasn't wealthy enough to impress them. But I still tried. I still sent money I couldn't afford because I thought that's what good daughters do. I never asked to be the favorite, Caleb said quietly. But you were. You are. And now you get to experience what it's like to be the one they depend on. How does it feel? He didn't answer right away. When he spoke again, his voice was strained. Isabella wants them out. She says they're taking over the house, criticizing everything, making snide comments about how we raise the kids. Eleanor rearranged our kitchen without asking. Richard complains about the temperature constantly. It's been 3 months and Isabella's already talking about marriage counseling. Good, I thought, but didn't say. Let him see what it was like to have parents who took and took without appreciation. I'm calling because I need you to take them for a while, Caleb said. Just a few months until they figure something else out. I actually laughed. Absolutely not. Chloe, please. I have a daughter who asked me for months why her grandparents didn't love her. I have a husband who trusted me when I said we needed to help my parents, who worked 2 jobs so we could afford it. I have a life that's finally stable and peaceful. I'm not inviting chaos back into it. They're your parents. They stopped being my parents when they told me my family didn't count. You want to get rid of them? Help them find an apartment. Help them get jobs. But don't call me asking for favors when they've shown up at my door uninvited, called my husband's work, tried to pick up my daughter from school without permission, and sued me for a car that was never theirs. They what? Caleb sounded genuinely shocked. Oh, they didn't mention that. Yeah, lawyer, lawsuit, the whole thing. Amelia shut it down pretty quickly, but the intent was there. I didn't know any of that. There's a lot you don't know because you've never had to deal with the version of them that I got. You got the proud parents who showed up for soccer games. I got the disappointed parents who made me feel like I owed them for existing. Caleb was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry, he finally said. I didn't realize. Now you do. So, handle it however you need to handle it, but leave me out of it. I hung up, feeling drained but resolute. Whatever happened with Eleanor and Richard was no longer my concern. The cease and desist did its job. The lawyer stopped contacting me, but the emails continued sporadically, always with the same themes. Sometimes Eleanor would cry and beg. Sometimes Richard would be angry and threatening. Sometimes they'd try bargaining, saying, if I just send a little money, if I just help them out of this one jam, they'd never ask again. I deleted every single one. The emotional toll of maintaining boundaries was something I hadn't anticipated. Some days were easy. I'd go weeks without thinking about them, focused on work and Sophie and building our new life. Other days, the guilt would crash over me like a wave. I'd see an older couple at the grocery store and wonder if my parents had enough to eat. I'd pass a for sale sign and think about them losing their house. Nathan noticed the pattern. On the bad days, he'd find me staring into space, lost in spiraling thoughts about whether I was a terrible person. You're not, he'd say every single time. You're someone who finally chose herself. I started seeing a therapist. Dr. Evans specialized in family dynamics and childhood trauma. Though I bristled at the word trauma initially. My childhood wasn't that bad. I insisted during our first session. Sure, love was conditional, and I constantly felt like I had to earn my place, but lots of people had it worse. Trauma isn't a competition, Dr. Evans said gently. And emotional manipulation, even when it comes from a place the manipulator thinks is love, still causes damage. Over the following months, we unpacked decades of patterns. How I'd learned that my worth was tied to my usefulness. How I'd internalized the message that I was the problem child who needed to make up for existing. How the guilt I felt about setting boundaries was actually a trauma response, not an accurate reflection of my moral character. Your parents trained you to feel responsible for their emotions, Dr. Evans explained during one session. Children learn early on how to maintain peace in their households. You learned that your job was to anticipate their needs, meet their expectations, and accept blame when things went wrong. That's not a partnership. That's not healthy love. The work was hard. Some sessions left me emotionally wrecked, crying in my car for 20 minutes before I could drive home. But slowly, the guilt started loosening its grip. I began to understand that protecting my own family wasn't selfish. It was necessary. Sophie thrived during this time. Without the constant financial stress, Nathan and I could be more present. We had energy for bedtime stories and weekend adventures. We could say yes to the small things: ice cream on a Tuesday, a new book, a trip to the children's museum, without calculating whether we could afford it. She asked about her grandparents exactly once more about 9 months after everything happened. We were driving home from kindergarten when she said, out of nowhere, Grace's grandma is picking her up for a sleepover this weekend. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. That sounds fun for Grace. Why don't my grandparents do sleepovers with me? I glanced in the rearview mirror at her small face, so earnest and confused. Nathan and I had discussed how to handle these questions when they came up. Sometimes people show love in different ways, I said carefully. And sometimes people aren't able to show love in ways that feel good to us. Your dad's parents love spending time with you, right? Grandma Michelle and Grandpa Arthur. Yeah, they're coming next month. And Grandma said we can make cookies. Exactly. Some people are good at showing love and some people struggle with it. My parents are the kind who struggle. She seemed satisfied with this answer, already moving on to telling me about the picture she painted at school. But the question haunted me for days afterward. Had I done the right thing? Was I depriving Sophie of a relationship she deserved? Dr. Evans shut that down quickly. You're not depriving her of anything. You're protecting her from people who showed through their actions that they don't value her the way she deserves to be valued. That's good parenting, Chloe. Still, doubt crept in during quiet moments until the day about 10 months after Sophie's birthday. I checked my email and found a message from my mother that made my blood run cold. The subject line read, "You'll regret this." The body of the email was long, rambling, switching between pleading and threatening. She talked about how they'd given me everything, how I owed them, how ungrateful and cruel I was being. Then near the end, she wrote, "Don't be surprised when Sophie grows up and treats you the same way you're treating us. What goes around comes around, Chloe. Karma is real." Threatening my daughter, even indirectly, even through some vague invocation of karma. It snapped something into place. Any residual guilt I had been carrying evaporated. I forwarded the email to Amelia. "Document it," she said. "If they escalate, we're filing for a restraining order." I also forwarded it to Caleb with a simple message. "This is who you're living with. This is who you're defending. Read it carefully and tell me again how I'm the problem." He didn't respond. The email was the last straw for me emotionally. I worked with Dr. Evans on writing a final message to Eleanor and Richard, something that would give me closure whether they read it or not. We crafted it over 2 sessions, making sure every word was mine, that it reflected boundaries rather than anger. I sent it on a Thursday morning nearly 11 months after Sophie's birthday. "Eleanor and Richard, this will be my final communication with you. I'm not angry anymore, but I am done. For 3 years, I sent you money while my own family struggled. I did this because I believed you needed it, because I loved you, because I thought that's what family does. But you used that money for luxuries while telling me I couldn't manage my finances. You chose to visit Caleb repeatedly while ignoring us. You missed Sophie's birthday without apology or acknowledgement of how much it hurt. When I finally set a boundary, you responded with manipulation, harassment, and threats. You called Nathan's workplace. You tried to pick up Sophie from school without authorization. You sued me. You sent me an email threatening that my daughter would someday hurt me the way you believe I've hurt you. I don't hate you, but I don't trust you and I don't want you in my life. Sophie deserves grandparents who show up, who value her, who don't treat her as less important than other grandchildren. Nathan deserves in-laws who respect him. I deserve parents who love me without conditions and without keeping score. I hope you find peace and stability. I hope you build a good life with Caleb. But I won't be part of your lives going forward. Don't contact me, my husband, or my daughter again. Chloe." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I blocked their email addresses, blocked their social media, and changed our phone numbers. Complete silence. The relief was immediate and profound. Sophie adjusted quickly to her grandparents' absence. When she asked about them, I told her a simplified truth. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt people they love, and sometimes the best thing to do is take some space from each other. She seemed to accept this. Her life was full of kindergarten playdates, her parents who were less stressed and more present. She didn't need grandparents who made her feel like an afterthought. 6 months after everything happened, Nathan came home with a brochure for a house. A real house with a yard. "I know it's maybe too soon," he said, "but with what we're saving now, what we've been able to put away." I did the math. We could afford this. I looked at the pictures of the 3-bedroom home with hardwood floors and a backyard perfect for a swing set. A home for our family. Our real family. "Let's do it," I said. We moved in 2 months later. Sophie had her own room, painted purple at her request, with stars on the ceiling. We had a dining room where we could host Michelle and Arthur for holidays. We had a backyard where Sophie could play. We built a life. A year after Sophie's 5th birthday, we threw her 6th birthday party in our new backyard. 20 kids came. Nathan's parents drove up and stayed for the weekend. Sophie wore a rainbow dress and laughed so hard she got hiccups. No one asked about Eleanor and Richard. They weren't part of our story anymore. That night, after everyone left and Sophie was asleep, I sat on our back porch with Nathan. He handed me a glass of wine, and we watched fireflies drift across the yard. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. I thought about the question seriously. Did I regret cutting off my parents? Did I regret ending 3 years of financial support and a lifetime of trying to earn love through sacrifice? "No," I said. "I regret that it took me so long." Nathan squeezed my hand. Inside, through the window, I could see Sophie's bedroom door slightly ajar. The star nightlight casting soft shadows. My family. My real family, the ones who counted. And we were finally, beautifully free. I'm still processing this entire journey, but I wouldn't change a thing now. Have you ever faced such a profound betrayal from family? Or had to make an impossible choice for the well-being of your own home? I'm genuinely curious to hear your experiences and how you navigated those waters. Let me know in the comments below.